For the longest time, I have felt strongly that Dungeons and Dragons and other tabletop role-playing games could be used effectively as team-building events. The difficulty I've always had with this is that trying to explain to people that have no background with tabletop role-playing games or other similar hobbies that a game can be of any benefit to them at all is very difficult to do. I had intended to invite all of my colleagues who had recently attended a team building day to a one-shot Dungeons and Dragons game, but I chickened out. This is a deep-rooted fear that stems from my history of being bullied at school for being a nerd because of playing Dungeons and Dragons. This makes describing Dungeons and Dragons and the benefits thereof difficult to do because I find myself making excuses and apologies for the game rather than selling it. So I resolved to make this video to sell the benefits of the game and describe what is exactly involved in the game. The first part will be about the benefits of TTRPGs and how they can be used as an out-of-work team building exercise in a similar way to paintballing or army obstacle courses, but with far less cold weather and mud and generally far less exercise. The second part will be a quick description of exactly what playing a TTRPG like Dungeons & Dragons is, describing the simple dynamic rather than going into lengthy rules explanations, and just generally giving you an idea of how the game plays. TTRPGs, or tabletop role-playing games, can be used with great effect to bring people together in a team. The concept of a TTRPG is that it presents the players with a number of problems to overcome, which lead to a final end-of-game problem or confrontation, which requires all of the players' input. Each player will take on the role of character, and each character will have different skills, abilities, or powers that they have access to. To a certain extent, this is similar to the common classroom team building exercises of building a bridge out of paper that a toy car can cross safely, or the classic build a package that will protect the egg when I drop it from the ceiling. The difference between these exercises and a TTRPG is that in these exercises, the team members are only bringing their own skills, strengths, and weaknesses to the task at hand. Team members who are naturally quiet or reserved will tend to allow others to take the lead and may not even offer their opinions or get involved. A well-crafted TTRPG game ensures that every player has a chance to shine and use their character's abilities to their fullest. TTRPGs encourage teamwork, resource management, communication, open discussion, problem solving, imagination, empathy, equality, and freedom of choice. Additionally, they allow players to feel heroic, successful, and autonomous. Socially, TTRPGs allow work colleagues to get together for an afternoon or evening and spend time together without talking about work. If you have ever attended a work social gathering only to find that you end up doing all you end up doing is moaning about how terrible work is, then you know that sometimes you leave these events feeling more down about work than when you first started. This can be minimized by organizing social events where you and colleagues partake in an activity, but most activities allow people to chat while they're doing the said activity. TTRPGs encourage conversation and communication, but direct it at the activity in hand, allowing your colleagues to forget about the stresses of work for a few hours and simply enjoy each other's company and the goal that you're trying to achieve. The benefits of playing in TTRPGs are hidden within the gameplay. Players don't come away from a game session thinking, wow, I really learnt how to empathize with people today, or my communication has really improved after this session. But it may occur to them later that they handled a difficult conversation just like they did when they were talking to the dragon that might have eaten them. Or they made a decision quickly, just like they did when they saved their friends from an avalanche that was about to kill them all. There may not be any actual dragons in our world, and we probably don't have to react to many avalanches. But the thinking processes used in the game can train our minds to react to realistic situations in more positive and creative ways. Describing how the game of Dungeons and Dragons works has always been a difficult task. The term TTRPG, or tabletop role-playing game, has only been around relatively recently, and even that term raises more questions than answers for people unfamiliar with the game. The game has been described as a shared storytelling experience, which is probably the closest explanation that can be given to the game if you want something that will fit on one line of text. The problem with all the descriptions of TTRPGs is that they invariably turn people off from wanting to partake in them before they have truly understood what it is that they are saying no to. To my mind, the best thing to compare a TTRPG to is an imagination jamming session. Using this analogy, the drummer is the dungeon master in Dungeons and Dragons, or game master in most other TTRPGs. The DM lays down the story beats, see what I did there, and the rest of the players then join in with their own characters, which, continuing the analogy, represent the other instruments in the band. At appropriate times, the drummer's beat may present opportunities for one of the players to take a solo, or for two of them to take a duet. This is where my musical knowledge ends, and therefore this analogy also ends there. The Dungeon Master sits behind a small screen on the table, which shields the maps and other information that they have planned out for the session. The Dungeon Master will then introduce the setting to the players that are gathered around the table, describing the scene and answering any questions that the players may have. The players will each have a character sheet that informs them of all the abilities that their characters has and the strengths and weaknesses, as well as the background of of that character, describing what they have done in the past, their social standing, their moral beliefs, and their future goals. In most games, the players create their own characters before the session, allowing them to choose all of these different aspects and create a character that they are 100% happy to play. The choices here are virtually limitless, and it can be difficult to make a character if you have no point of reference or understanding of the game. For this session, I therefore plan to offer a choice of some pre-made characters and allow the players to pick some of the ones which they feel most linked with. The players are responsible for deciding all the actions that their character makes during the game and can respond to the situations placed in front of them by the Dungeon Master in whatever way they choose. By working together, the players should be able to overcome all of the challenges set before them. But how they do this is entirely up to them. The rules of the game can seem complex and overwhelming for new players. So to counter this, I've tried to make the character sheets more user-friendly and have made several useful tools to make the rules aspects of the game more user-friendly and put the emphasis on the imagination and role-play aspects of the game. Role-playing is another term which often puts people off of playing the game. For clarity, there's no requirement to put on a silly voice, wear costume, or speak in ye olde English. The role-play in D&D is entirely in reference to the fact that you are playing a character that may be very different to yourself and have different abilities and skills. You do not even have to speak in character if you do not want to. It is entirely possible for you to say, my character puts an arm around the old crying woman and says some comforting words, and says that we will rescue her children, rather than, I put my arm around the crying woman and say, it's okay, Mabel, I swear to all the gods of Evandar that I and my companions will rescue your children. The difference is subtle, but if you're not a very theatrical person, it can make you feel a little less like a prat. The Dungeon Master is responsible for role-playing every other person that you meet in the game and interact with. For the Dungeon Master, using speech patterns, accents, and other tricks to differentiate the people they are playing is helpful and can often be entertaining for the players. The DM also describes all of the things that the characters are seeing, hearing, smelling, touching, and tasting. A typical game of Dungeons and Dragons is called Campaign and takes place over several sessions, and many take months and even years of regular sessions to complete. Don't panic. The session I have planned is designed as a one-off taster session for the game, also known as a one-shot. It will have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and should leave everyone feeling satisfied with the outcome, whether they succeed in the adventure or die trying. The game is about playing and interacting with the world. There are consequences to your actions, and characters, not players, can die. Jumping off a 1,000-foot cliff will kill you in real life and will also kill your character in Dungeons and Dragons. Being shot by 3 arrows will probably kill you in real life and will hurt. And likewise, it will probably kill your character in Dungeons and Dragons, or at least injure them. Without these consequences, the game stops being fun and simply becomes a process of finding the correct sequence of events to achieve the goal. Much like when you can save the game on a computer game and go back and try again. Risk and luck make the game more suspenseful and enjoyable for everyone at the table and ensures that the game is fun to play. Without the chance of failure, there is no fulfillment in success. Dungeons & Dragons and other TTRPGs. Okay, guys, so this has been my explanation for Dungeons & Dragons and also my invitation for you all to join me in a game. I hope that the explanation has at least somewhat answered some of your questions and given you a sense of what would happen in a game. And I hope that you actually enjoy joining me for a session. Even if it just gives you a sense of what it is I do with my spare time, I'd be glad of that. Hoping to hear from you soon. Leave some comments down below if you've got any questions that you need answering, or find me on the board. And yeah, like and subscribe. Why not? You said you would at that meeting. And I can do with as many as I can get. So like and subscribe down below, and I'll catch you at work. Bye.